radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Yeah, man. You can see me on the camera. You can see I'm just sitting down getting this day started. It's Monday, January 11th, 2021. 11 days into the new year, only 354 days left. We are live from a bunker that is somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How was your weekend? Yeah, man. Okay, here we go. Crazy week for the United States. Crazy week coming up for the United States. And this week on Fade to Black tonight, Richard Dolan is here. We're going to be talking about how the U.S. is being put to the test. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch is here. We're going to be talking about the big tech drama taking over the world right now as I speak to you. Wednesday night, John Greenwald joins us. We're going to be talking about free speech, the First Amendment, and private company rights. Incredible week. This week on Fade to Black, I don't think we will mention UFOs one time. Well, that is until Thursday. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Unscreened, uncensored, unfiltered. Truly the greatest night in all of talk radio. So today, the top 50 talk radio shows and hosts were released for 2020. The ratings game. That's right. The rankings came out and Fade to Black. Okay, number one, Rush Limbaugh. But we knew that. Sean Hannity, all that stuff. Okay, all those guys at the top. But right there in the list in the top 50, just go down just a little bit. And there it is. Number 15 in the nation. Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. Ha ha! How cool is that? And that's some pretty stiff competition. Number 14 right above us, Alex Jones. Yep. And everybody else in between. But we came in at number 15 this year. I'm very proud. Thank you to, of course, Rita, but the entire team here at Fade to Black that put it together every single day going on live. But, of course, none of it happens without you, this audience, and the Fadernauts. So thank you, okay? Number 15. That's crazy. And we are the only, on that list of 50, we're the only independent, man. That's it. There's a lot of big money, a lot of big names, a lot of corporate stuff up above us and below us. But no, Fade to Black. Number 15. All right, follow me on Twitter at J Church Radio. Oh, I didn't bring to the studio tonight. I'll bring her tomorrow. Our latest skull that we got from Carolyn Ford, Rapture. We posted pictures of it over the weekend. And but go to EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com and use that promo code Jimmy for 10% off of your order. And I only bring that up. I forgot it. Forgot Rapture. But I will have Rapture here tomorrow. You guys got to see her. One solid chunk of sapphire. Yeah, pretty amazing to see. I'll have it tomorrow at the studio. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And as everybody knows, I'll be talking about this in just a second. Twitter did a big purge over the weekend. And, of course, there was a big exodus of people heading over to Parler, which has now been removed. But I lost about 5,000 followers. I did. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox on Twitter. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. All right, let's get to all of the breaking news. Lots to talk about tonight. Well, the big news, of course, is Parler went tonight at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. More on that later on in the show. But that is the big news. It is still down. Twitter just announced right before showtime that they have suspended more than 70,000 accounts since Friday that were engaged in sharing harmful QAnon-associated content, which they say were dedicated to the propagation of this conspiracy theory across their platform. Twitter said that they have been taking strong enforcement action on behavior that is a potential to lead to offline harm in the wake of the Capitol riot last week. Since Friday, more than 70,000 accounts have been suspended as the result of our efforts, with many instances of a single individual operating numerous accounts. These actions may have resulted in follower count changes in the thousands. And so that was 70,000. 5,000 of those accounts were following me. That's crazy. That's crazy. So many people closed their accounts down and left. I know it's a mix of those numbers. But, yep. And we gained back. It was really strange. I don't really pay much attention to Twitter. I don't. It just runs and whatever. But I noticed, on Friday, what's going on? Every time I opened up my account, I was down like another 500, another 1,000. And that's before the stuff really started to hit the fan. And it was pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. And then it would go up. I would gain, a couple of hundred, and then it would go down by 500. So I lost 5,000. I netted back like 2,000 in a span of like 3 days. Crazy. All right, where am I at? The New York State Bar Association announced today that it has launched an investigation into disbarring President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, after he addressed a crowd of Trump supporters last week on January 6th. The NYSBA said in a statement today, quote, having received hundreds of complaints about Giuliani's baseless efforts to prove that the 2020 election was fraudulent, and in the light of his speech that he gave before pro-Trump rioters barged into the U.S. Capitol last week, the New York State Bar Association has launched an inquiry into revoking the former New York City mayor's law license, end quote. Those are their words, not mine. Crazy. Just add that to the pile of crazy. The surge of COVID-19 in California has just gotten worse after at least 2 gorillas at the San Diego Zoo have become infected with COVID-19. 3 animals are currently showing symptoms of the virus, and it is suspected that they were infected by an asymptomatic staff member. This is the first known instance of coronavirus in great apes, though previous research has shown that some non-human primates are susceptible. The gorillas they live as a family, so it's assumed that all members have been exposed. It started last Wednesday when 2 gorillas began coughing. A preliminary test within the group showed the presence of the virus on Friday, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's National Veterinary Services Laboratory, say that 5 times, confirmed the positive results earlier today. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, jazz great guitarist Lee Ritenour, today, 69 years old. The Bangles guitarist Vicki Peterson, today is 63. Our dead guy's birthday today is Denny Green, 1949 to 2015, died at the age of 66. Denny was a member of Sha Na Na. That's right. Who were formed in 1969 at Columbia University in New York as the Columbia Kingsmen. The name change to Sha Na Na occurred because of another group, the Kingsmen, which was known for their song, Louie Louie. The television show Sha Na Na aired from 1978 to 1981, and Denny choreographed most of the moves for the show. He was portrayed in the series as the most intelligent member of Sha Na Na. He sang lead in the song Tears on My Pillow when he appeared with Sha Na Na in the movie Grease in 1978. Denny also performed at Woodstock with Sha Na Na, opening for Jimi Hendrix. But here's the kicker. Denny also graduated from Yale Law School. He worked as vice president of production and features at Columbia Pictures. He taught at Florida A&M University and the University of Oregon School of Law, where he taught entertainment law. He was also a visiting professor at several other universities, including Ohio State, Seton Hall, and the University of Connecticut. Green also served on the board of directors for the Society of American Law Teachers from 2007 until his death. He was a professor of law at the University of Dayton Law School. Denny died in Dayton on September 5th, 2015 from cancer, just 2 weeks after his diagnosis. He was just 66 years old. Sha Na Na. Who knew? On this day in history, 1964, the U.S. Surgeon General announces definitive links between smoking and cancer. The announcement was made on a Saturday because U.S. Surgeon General Luther Terry thought that nobody would notice. And that's a fact. And here's your fader fact for the day. In 1903, Horatio Nelson Jackson and Sewall K. Crocker and Bud the Pit Bull became the first people to drive across the United States in a 20-horsepower Winton touring car. The trip took 64 days, started in San Francisco, and ended in New York. By the end of the trip, there were no original parts left on the vehicle. And that is your fader fact. Go check it out. Go check it out. All right. I talk about it all the time. Said it last week, said it the week before, said it the month before, said it the year before. Today's the craziest news day ever, and it just built up day after day after day to the craziness you thought last week was the peak. And then we had this weekend. Absolute insanity. That's why tonight we have a very special guest. Richard Dolan is here. We're going to be talking about how the U.S. right now is being put to the test. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch is here. We're going to be talking about all of the big tech drama right now that has taken over the world, your world. Wednesday night, John Greenwald is here. We're going to be talking about free speech, the First Amendment, right? We're going to be talking about private company rights and censorship, all of that on Wednesday. And then somehow we'll make it to Thursday when it's another fader night with open lines all night long. And it's going to be what a week on the show. We'll get through it, folks. We'll get through it. It's a bumpy ride. Looking at 2021 and how happy everybody was, on New Year's Eve 2020. Remember that last week? Remember that? I wonder if there's an exchange policy. Can we trade it in right now? Do you want 2020 back? No, not yet. Don't. It's not that yet. But go to Rivermoon. Go to rivermoonwellness.com right now and get yourself, right? Some Fade to Black blend coffee. All right. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. All right. All right. Parler. Parler has been hit by a massive data scrape. A number of hackers and security researchers collected huge downloads of user and company data before the network went dark last night after Amazon, Google, and Apple booted the platform. Not one hacker, many. It was so easy that anybody who was bored or had some free time over the weekend got in on the action for 2 or 3 days. The hackers created one fake Parler admin account and then used that account to create a handful of new fake admin accounts. Now stay with me. Then they wrote a simple script that ended up creating millions of fake Parler admin accounts and then posted it all. Every hacker on planet Earth who wanted a full-on Parler admin account got one. Seriously. Right now, it's not known how many people downloaded the farm. But at this point, it doesn't matter. After a few dozen, who's counting? They got it all. Everything. All of it. Parler's company data is now on hundreds of drives around the world. When Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services, announced that they were pulling the plug on Parler, hacker Donk Enby quickly went to work and downloaded 99% of everything, including user data, current posts, deleted posts, messages, everything, all of the private data, and all of the uploaded raw video files by Parler users, including all metadata and GPS locations of where the videos were recorded. And if that doesn't scare the crap out of you. Donk Enby later shared a screenshot showing the GPS position of a particular video with coordinates in latitude and longitude. Donk Enby has, right now, over 56 terabytes of data. And others have said that the number that they have verified their identity by uploading photographs of government-issued IDs, such as a driver's license. Now, to get specific user data and register a new account, you would need a very, very sophisticated system on your front end, right? Something totally secure, something locked down, programmed, coded, and looked after by an amazing team leader. Right? Of course. Parler is a cutting-edge social media network. It is modern, with a platform custom built from the ground up. It is an amazing chunk of code. Right? Not so fast. Chew on this. To get the user data, Parler was using free trial software from Okta to store and verify all their user identities up until they went dark last night. In case you missed it, maybe you didn't hear me right, so I'll say it again. Parler, to get their user data, was using free trial software from Okta to store and verify all of their user identities up until they went dark last night. You can't make this stuff up. In a statement just released, Okta said, quote, "We were notified that Parler was using a free trial of Okta's product, and we have terminated Parler's access to the Okta platform. While we support organizations across the political spectrum, our platform will not be used for threats of violence and illegal activity, which also includes exploiting free trial software instead of paying for it for over 2 years. So, in review, all of the user data from Parler accounts that was collected using free trial software from Okta over the last 2 years has been hacked by multiple independent individuals. Oh, the irony in all of this. And I didn't even mention Cambridge Analytica. The new social media platform that was all about freedom of speech, integrity, honesty, and a higher social standard for its users was ripping off Okta and not paying for the software. I've been poking around on a few of the techie websites about all of this, and there's a vicious rumor going around that Parler was also built on a WordPress template, not custom designed software. Collecting data, your driver's licenses, with a WordPress template. Now, I haven't visited Parler, okay? All right? I'm not picking on Parler. And now I can't check it out in person to verify any of this. The site is down. But from the chatter that I've gathered from those in the know, Parler had open front and back doors to anyone who wanted to find them. It was so easy that the hackers aren't calling it hacking. They call it, wait for it, they were just logging in. The data breach and download bonanza that happened so fast by so many that there wasn't any time to stop it or really even know about it or warn users that they should delete their data. Changing passwords wouldn't have done anything. The downloads were being done by actual fake, real administrators. And nobody at Parler was smart enough to know what was going on. And here is the irony on the actual irony. Parler was trying to sign up as many as possible over the last few days as thousands of Twitter users closed their accounts. And as soon as someone left Twitter to Parler, all of their private data was being downloaded by a hacker at the same time, in actual real time. Now, one more layer of irony for you. Just like WikiLeaks, you'd better think about what you do or say on a computer. Because all of Parler's deleted conversations, planning, email, people, names that were to be private forever were just downloaded and stored and are now being read by people who probably are not considered friends. And all of it will find its way into the public domain for the world to see. And you can count on it, just like a WikiLeaks free-for-all. Did you sign up for Parler with your driver's license? Somebody out there, a lot of somebody's, has it right now. Now, Parler is unlikely to rebound quickly, if at all. Migrating 56 terabytes of product off of AWS can take months of staging and possibly years to execute. Apps that integrate AWS's wide array of services cannot be easily transposed onto different hosting environments. And then there is the nasty issue of the pirated user data that needs Okta servers to run. Should the platform relaunch anytime soon, and it is possible, it will only be a shell of its former self. Now, am I picking on Parler? Certainly not. This could be said about a lot of sites out there. Parler is the one making the headlines this week. And I just report the news. Tonight, very special guest Richard Dolan is here. We're going to be talking about what's going on right now. America, the United States, is truly being put to the test. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch is here. We're going to be talking about all of this big tech drama that is going down. All of it. Coordinated, quick, fast. And it's the United States. It's the citizens of this country that are caught in the middle. Wednesday night, John Greenwald joins us. We're going to be talking about free speech. What is it? The First Amendment. What is it? Private company rights, censorship, all of that on Wednesday night. It is going to be an amazing, fantastic, knowledgeable week here on Fade to Black. You're not going to want to miss 1 minute of any show. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. If there's anybody left on Twitter to follow me. Holy crap. What a week. What a week. What a week. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow Richard Dolan at Rich Dolan. All of that is up in Twitter right now. You can go and do that. And I'm saying hello to everybody in the chat rooms, over on the Bunker Cam, YouTube. Think about everything that I just laid out for you. If this isn't the craziest week ever. I said to Rita, I said it to Richard right before the show, I don't know what's going on, but all day today, I felt like I was in the game Silent Hill. For real. I mean, I'm in this tunnel vision video game madness. It's crazy. And I'm not the only one. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch. Wednesday, John Greenwald. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Richard Dolan. Stay right there.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. GetTheT.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheT.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheT.com. GetTheT.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Crazy week last week, crazy week coming up, crazy week coming up on Fade to Black. Tonight, Richard Dolan is here. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch. Wednesday night, John Greenwald. All of this programming this week, we'll be talking about the United States and what is going on right now. On the tech side, freedom of speech, censorship, everything. Tonight, Richard. We're going to be covering all the latest developments that have rocked the United States and the world over the last week, all of them. And I doubt that any of the conversation tonight will have any UFOs or Alternative 3. Richard, insert laughter right there. This is one of the craziest week in all of history. And before I get down to going through all of Richard's accomplishments and what he means to me personally for the show and the UFO community and our community in general, it's without measure. Okay, I've had the opportunity to introduce Richard at multiple conferences across this country, and I say the same thing every time I introduce him, that it's an honor and a pleasure to call him a friend. But it was those 10 minutes that he spent at the panel for disclosure at the press club in Washington, D.C. that stick with me forever. And with that, you can go to richarddolanpress.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can read his bio there. And I want to bring on the Fade to Black. Richard, how are you, man?
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure to be on here with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the first time I didn't read your bio, but I will.
You know why? Because like that, you read like this old bio anyway.
Yeah.
It's totally out of date.
Well,
I keep wanting to give you something new, but I just never get.
No, well, there's that part, and also I'm just lazy. So I accept the responsibility for that.
Thank you.
Let's keep tradition going, and I'm just going to ask you. You already know what mine was. What was the last song you listened to today?
Okay. So it's actually, I have to give you two answers because the very last music that I was listening to earlier today was some partitas by Johann Sebastian Bach.
Whoa! I thought you were going to say NWA, but Bach.
No, well, I have listened to them. No, I'm a very big fan of Bach.
Yes.
And the partitas are kind of mind-blowingly brilliant. If you really just sit down and you listen to them. I was sort of quasi listening to them. The last rock song that I listened to earlier in the day was by one of my favorite groups of all time, The Who. And it was one of my favorite songs by them, The Real Me.
Oh, man. Well done.
Isn't that
well
a great
played.
song?
Yeah. Well played. I watched yesterday, watched a video live at Leeds. I think it's Leeds. The Who Won't Get Fooled Again. And that video performance is so perfect. But that era that you're referring to right there with The Who, some of the best ever. And my last song today also had The Who, but it was the Guess Who.
Oh, yes. We had a little chat beforehand, and you mentioned the Guess Who. I'm a very big fan of them.
Yeah.
They were a really good group.
Yeah, amazing
Very
stuff.
good group.
I needed to escape, man. I needed to escape, and I said to you earlier, and I said this to
Don't
Rita.
we all?
I'm in a weird place mentally, and absorbing all of the news, trying to stay on top of things.
There's not going to be a normal after this.
No,
We're not going back to a normal.
No. So
get used to it.
I'm going to ask you the funnest question that I can ask you, and we'll get this out of the way first, which is, you're a student of history. You're a historian, right? That's what you do, Richard.
Yeah.
In the future, what is this chapter of the book going to be like?
I've actually written about this in my very last book, and we chatted about this the last time you had me on. My book is called The Alien Agendas. But in that book, I introduce a theory of mine. I've been really thinking about this a lot, and I firmly believe more now than ever that this is correct, and that humanity, our entire species, is moving into a new stage of existence. Up until around now, human beings have lived in three fundamental forms of living. For hundreds of thousands of years, we lived as hunters and gatherers, and that's what we did for the longest time. Then 10 to 15,000 years ago, we developed agriculture and we domesticated animals. That's the agricultural revolution. That gave us human civilization. That gave us ancient Egypt. That gave us the Roman Empire. That gave us everything right on through the Renaissance and up until the Industrial Revolution when we hit stage 3. That's the age of science and industry. And that's where we have lived in. And that's a very revolutionary stage. But now we are, in my view, poised to enter stage 4. And I haven't really known what I want to call it. For a while, I was calling it the transhumanist stage, but I never felt that was quite right. Maybe we can call it the digital stage. Maybe we can call it the surveillance stage. I don't know, but maybe the digital stage. But the fact is, we have a lot of technologies coming together. It's not just one technology. It's not just strong artificial intelligence. It's not just 5G surveillance tech with smart devices everywhere. It's that and more that's, in my view, turning slowly, or not so slowly, turning the human race into one big anthill. And so what we're seeing is a very substantial, fundamental transformation of the foundations of our society and indeed of our, ultimately perhaps even our biology. But right now, our social organization is being radically changed. And what we're seeing then is like all of these other conflicts that are happening, like everything in this last year, from even the virus and the lockdowns and the craziness that happened last summer, those riots, the election cycle, and this disputed election, like all of this, in my view, are symptoms of this transformation where you've got a certain percentage of the people that are promoting or pushing this new era, and there are those who are resisting it. And I think that's really what we're looking at.
Did it happen too fast? We didn't understand what the implications would be or the impact on culture and emotions in our children?
I think we have no understanding.
Right.
No, I mean, when do people have foresight into the new ventures that they engage in? I think, we just ran headlong into the age of the internet. 20 years ago, we all thought, oh, the internet's the world of freedom. It gives everyone opportunity. We can tear the walls down of oppression and authoritarianism. And what we are now seeing, of course, is that those very forces are using the internet in the exact opposite way that we had all hoped and dreamed and wanted one generation ago.
And how my view has changed, but if you go back to 1995 and I'm in a chat room or whatever on AOL or some platform, and I'm talking to somebody in Germany making friends. You know what I mean? I thought, man, that's insane. How cool
was amazing.
is this?
It is amazing.
It was. Right. It made the world so much smaller, and I just thought to myself, this type of freedom, and which was being spoken about from the creators of this here in Northern California, in Silicon Valley, where the creators of the internet were like the punk rock guitarist, right? They were rebels, man. They were thinking outside of the box and freedom and information and all of that. And
well, that was also fueling their income. Like that ideology worked very well for lining their pockets and making profit. So
well, certainly, yeah. That's what there was it was one thing to create it, and then next was okay. Now we got to monetize this monster, right? They certainly figured that out.
Is that really in the last decade, we've seen a very definite, like the Empire Strikes Back scenario, and what has happened is that, you could almost argue that those people at the top of our food chain said, "Okay, this is too much freedom." And we've got to scale this back. We got to turn this a little bit back into the 1980s again, and put everyone back on, network television and watching reruns of Full House or whatever.
Sure.
So they essentially, you saw the curtain coming down slowly at first, and in the last 5 years, really even before Trump hit the scene, we started seeing a real rollback of freedom. I mean, even this one of the things that I actually hate are hate speech laws. And, we started seeing them. We don't have them officially in the United States, but they are officially in other countries, and they are unofficially in the United States. And I think that the concept of hate speech is absolutely pernicious and should just be erased. It won't be erased. It's here to stay. But I grew up, and you grew up, and probably any listener who's over the age of 35 even, grew up in an environment where freedom of speech was a given. It was assumed. Not simply birthright as an American, but your birthright as a person in the Western world. We assumed that, our society thrived when diversities of opinions were able to be expressed, because that's how we learn from each other. And that's always been the foundation. And what we have seen is a concerted rollback of the principles of freedom of speech. And, all of these pretexts have been employed to promote that. So hate speech being a very popular one. And now what we're seeing is combating misinformation. Oh, well, we can't let people have misinformation. And now we're at the point where Twitter has banned the president of the United States permanently. And you have Amazon taking down Parler. I listened to you talking about Parler. I think the big story about Parler, secondarily, is the hack. Primarily, it's the fact that Amazon pulled the rug from out under them. So what we're seeing, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. We're seeing a concerted effort against freedom of speech on the basis of, yes, combating hate speech, but combating misinformation. We hear this more and more, and I think that's a very pernicious trend.
I had said, and it's not about me, but I certainly put it out there because I got a weird vibe like 6 years ago, about Twitter, in that celebrities, this was my take, a celebrity with 5 or 10 million followers can change the course and emotion of, potentially 10 million people in a nanosecond. And that ability is a powerful tool. And it is, we're talking about thousands of, now they call them influencers, right? But these thousands of people that now have this megalomaniac type of thing where they know that they can say in a moment, cheddar cheese will kill you, and wipe out the cheddar cheese market in a second, right?
Well, we have zero education. We've got a nation of very uneducated people, so that's how that can happen. That wasn't supposed to be the case with the internet, with freedom of speech. We were supposed to have better education and a smarter populace, and so people can be manipulated. I don't know by cheddar cheese, but I get your point.
Yes.
it's easy to manipulate the public. And in fact, I would argue that the general level of knowledge of the population has gone down, not up, over the last generation.
Now, when this starts to become visible, where you start to see the ability to develop into a cancel culture, and the power to manipulate in nanoseconds, by the way, this happens at the speed of light, where if you go back and you're a student of history, in the old days, you had to print on an old printing press and get a flyer out, and your message, no matter how important it was, took months to go a couple of blocks. Right. A couple of blocks, right? And to get it out, it would take years for a movement. Today, it's the speed of light. And people now know, and certainly those with not necessarily your best intentions in mind, they know and understand the power of social media and what the internet is today.
Well, it sounds like I'm not going to accuse you of this, but it sounds like you're perhaps justifying the need to crack down on some of the liberties of social media.
No,
I'm
not
sure
at all. No. What I'm saying is because this ability now to change emotions that quick, if somebody wants to do something screwed up, they now know that they can do this, and they know how to propagate it. They know how to get the shares going and the likes and the retweets and the comment. And the next thing you know, I'll go straight back to the fake news phenomenon that happened 5 years ago. And when you find out that it's just a bunch of kids in Macedonia that want to make some money, right? That's all it was.
Well, the real fake news has always been establishment corporate news. Always.
Well, and we can definitely get into Operation Mockingbird and what it, what that really is. But now here we are today. Aren't they moving too fast? Is it gotten to a point where we can't really put the car in park, let alone reverse?
The attack on individual liberties is definitely moving too fast. That is definitely the number one thing that concerns me personally, is looking at this trend. The fact that our civilization is moving into this new stage, which I do consider the next stage of humanity, it's happening fast, and I don't see how it's even possible to slow it down. I mean, it's got its own momentum in so many different ways and areas that, I don't know if there's any single person on this planet who really knows how to slow it down.
And
unplug the internet, perhaps.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
And then we have, corporate greed, which is definitely paramount in all of this. Follow the money. Is this the most valuable thing on this planet right now? Isn't gold? It's data, right?
That's right.
Data is the most valuable commodity that is bought and sold right now today. AT&T doesn't make money off their phones. They make money off of selling your data, right? Yeah. That is a crazy situation that we find ourselves in, and all companies are in on the game.
And that data is about individual human beings. So that's what is very valuable. And actually, I don't want to get too far afield here, but you are exactly right about data being the most valuable and important thing. If you want to look at the development of strong artificial intelligence, what's called generative AI, artificial intelligence that can think for itself, what it requires more than anything else is massive amounts of data. So that's why 5G networks that are coming into place with all the smart devices, like your smart toaster, which will talk to your smart refrigerator, and your smart toilet, so that they know what you're eating, and what's going through your system. But all of that data, it's massive amounts of data that's going to flow through 5G, and AI algorithms require huge amounts of data, and that's what makes them smart, and that's what will actually probably put them over into the tipping point of what the AI people call the singularity.
Now,
so we're moving fast toward that as well.
And the speed of, when we consider what went down in 2020, which is so much bad news, right? There's just so many different directions to go in. But we are only on the 11th of January in 2021. 11 days have passed by in 2021, and the news has been piled up so much on everybody in the world, right? This has got to be starting to cause some real stress, as if 2020 wasn't bad enough for everybody to deal with.
People were thinking, oh, well, as long as we get 2020 behind us, we'll be back to normal. And of course, no. Honestly, I think of January 6th, of the Capitol riot as the final day of 2020. Like, to me, that's the perfect capstone to this god-awful year that we all just have gone through.
I had that same exact thought. I swear that, you know what, this was the true end on January 6th. Now, with as a historian, take me through what went through your mind as January 6th started to unfold. I can tell you this, Richard. I was in my bedroom watching the news, which I never do. And I thought, well, January 6th, this is going down, so let's see how this plays out. Okay, we've got so many things that could happen today, so let's watch that. And then everything else happened about an hour later. What went through your mind as it started to unfold?
I was actually working at my desk. I was in a quiet space. My sister in Spain messaged me and said, "You've got to watch what's going on." And so I didn't watch anything live. I looked at news articles. I don't like to react to current things that are happening because I don't like to get caught up into the craziness and the emotions, and particularly anything that's covered in establishment news, I just never, ever trust, ever. But, I got up to speed on what was happening. And the thing that I will say, we're walking in very tricky ground here because, look, I just want to say this. So people know me primarily as a guy who's writes about UFOs, but if they follow me at all, they also know that I've studied politics and geopolitics my entire life, and that's very much in my DNA also. But when I speak to people who follow me, for most of the time in my public life, I've been able to do that without triggering one side of the political divide or the other. And I've done, I think, a pretty good job at for people not even knowing what my personal politics are. In the last 5 years, that's almost been impossible. So it concerns me because I continue to try to speak to people on the left and on the right, and that is important to me. But what we've gone into in this world is a situation where people on the left and on the right are not. It's not even that they're not listening. It's like they can't hear each other. And for the record, I actively listen to analysts on the left and on the right almost pretty much every day. And that doesn't mean that I agree with all of them. I don't, but it's important for me to understand them. That's the thing. I want to understand why people might think differently from me because I can learn from them. That's the whole point. It can be uncomfortable at first when we encounter those opinions, but it's very important. But anyway, back to January 6th. So what I will say is I have listened to arguments on both sides of this. I have listened to people who have said that this is like an insurrection. It's comparable to 9/11. Okay, I'm like, no, it's not comparable to 9/11. Let's not go there. I remember 9/11. You remember 9/11. This is not 9/11. So don't try to tell me it is. But they're calling it riot, insurrection, and I will just say anytime that there's physical violence going on anywhere, whether it's in D.C. or in Portland this summer or in my neighborhood 3 houses from my house where the local Walgreens was twice looted and had its windows shot out during the summer riots, scared the hell out of me. Anytime that there's physical violence, I don't like it, and I do not like the fact that there was violence at the Capitol on January 6th. It was absolutely uncalled for. So that is a problem. On the right, I've listened to people who have said, and I don't know what their evidence is, and they could be totally wrong, but I hear people talking, this is a false flag. Why did the police allow the rioters up so easily? What's going on there? The fact is, I don't know the full story. I don't know if any of us really does. So I don't want to make a judgment on everything that happened that day. What I'm more concerned about is the reaction to it. And to me, the reaction is what scares the hell out of me more than anything else. we're seeing draconian measures on the scale of what we saw after 9/11. And this was no 9/11. So we have President-elect Biden now talking about one of the first things I think he plans to do is introduce domestic anti-terrorism legislation. We don't need domestic anti-terrorism legislation. Like, the laws are on the books already. But this is going to be a rollout that for people who are cheering this, I'm just going to tell them, be careful what you wish for. Because this is one more step in having your life regulated in every bit of minutia. And I don't think that people really want that. And no one's going to persuade me against the principles of free speech. And what we're seeing, the attack on Parler, by Amazon particularly, and even, deplatforming Trump. I strongly disagree with these. You can hate Trump all you want, but the man's the president of the United States. And when you take the platform away from the president of the United States, you can take it away from anyone. And they are taking it away from anyone, thousands and thousands of people. So, and when you give an opposition no place to express their dissent, you're putting them into a corner and you're making things worse, not better. You've got to give people a valve for being able to express themselves legitimately. That doesn't mean you have the right to incite violence. But I just have to say the definition of inciting violence has become very slippery. And we really need to be very careful about how we are defining this. So I'm uncomfortable with all of these tendencies that are going on right now. And I do not see an end to it. I think we're going to see a great escalation of this from this point onward.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said, and I think most people do. I don't know.
I think a lot of people don't agree. I think a lot of people are very happy with what's going on.
Well, okay. Well, this goes back to your statement. I've got 30 seconds. It goes back to your statement earlier that no matter what you and I say right now, this is what you didn't get to close your statement, which is no matter what, half are going to be happy, half are not.
Right. That's right.
And so I'll just finish your sentence for you back then, and which is it's such a slippery slope. In that even with Fade to Black, I put down the law, no politics on the show. I have a no politics thing. Conspiracy of politics, I'm game. Politics, except half of my audience is one way, half is the other, and it has no room to be discussed on the show, so then I get the audience openly fighting with each other. No.
Oh, yeah, I get that as well with my group.
Yeah,
you're talking partisan politics, and that is something that I try to avoid as well.
I have friends that I've known just like you for 30, 40 years. It's like I don't even know them anymore. And it's not that it is the partisan politics kind of thing, but it's that nobody wants to listen to anybody else. It's like, how do we get here? This country was based on people being different, right? That was what was so great, and we've lost sight of that. It's not about unity. Everybody can be different, but we always found a way to debate and meet somewhere in the middle.
That's right.
And nobody wants to hear that now. Let's take our break. We got to take a break right here, Richard. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan. We're discussing everything that has gone down in the last week. It is crazy, but it's also the future. Where are we headed? All of that and much more with Richard when we come back. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow me on Twitter, if there's anybody left on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. You can follow Richard at Rich Dolan. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I got to put my game face back on. I'm watching Richard dance in his studio. He loves the bumper music here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan. Tomorrow night, Greg Hausch is here. And Wednesday night, John Greenwald. An amazing week of programming coming up. And, of course, Thursday night is Fader Night with open lines all night long. And now let's dip our toes back in the water, Richard, in that we know and the audience knows that no matter what we do in this conversation, we're going to have half one way, half the other. Maybe some will meet in the middle. But the thing is that I want to express to everybody is no matter what the conversation is, we're here to just learn and try to figure things out. The country is damaged right now. That includes this audience, includes me, includes you, Richard. I mean, we are all affected by this. And then we have, I'm gonna lay this out. We have a situation where I know that me personally, on social media, I've signed a terms of service, I've agreed to things, and I must play in bounds. If I play out of bounds, I'm going to get a warning, which I've had those. If I do it too many times, I could lose my account, okay, which has happened to me too as well with YouTube. Well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
With what you just mentioned, the dramatic, probably completely overplayed move by Twitter by completely removing President Trump and his personal account. The POTUS account is still active, but the real Donald Trump account. Twitter's going to say, hey, we warned him. We gave him the longest leash possible for months. We labeled his tweets. He knew that this was a possibility, and we warned him. And we did that because he was the president of the United States. If it would have been anybody else, he would have been off the platform a long time ago. That is Twitter's position here. It's not really acceptable, is it?
No, it's a completely false position. I mean, Twitter, famously locked out the New York Post from its Hunter Biden story in the lead up to the election. A completely legit story that was sourced properly. It was not hacked as people had claimed. And it had an effect on the election. There was no question about it. They were clearly acting on behalf of one side of the political argument.
Well, and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I never talk about this.
They can't pretend to be unbiased.
Right. And I never talk about this stuff on the show, so everybody's going to hear me speak about this for the first time. If we go back to the Hunter Biden story, that was the lead story on Fox for quite a while, all day long programming. And then Tucker Carlson announces on Fox, you know what? Hunter's a friend of mine. I'm not going to damage him. When just the day before he said, UPS lost the package. I got the dump. I got the thing. And they lost the package. And I'm going to reveal this. When I finally get it, I'm going to bring you all the data that's going to blow Hunter. And then the next day, Tucker says, hey, you know what? I'm going to let the story die where it is. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. It was non grata on Fox
that
after
was
that.
Quite interesting.
But
the point is that what Twitter did was egregious.
But
in fact, supported by Facebook as well.
Yeah. Why?
So they stopped the reportage from the New York Post, one of the oldest. That's Alexander Hamilton's newspaper.
Yes.
And they just blocked it. I mean, it was ridiculous. But back to Twitter's argument about Donald Trump. Trump is hard to categorize because he's not like any politician that we've ever had. And, there are legitimate, ultra legitimate gripes that people on the left and right can have about Donald Trump. Not just people on the left. There's like a lot of things one can say about Donald Trump that are legit criticisms. And his use of Twitter is legendary. And, that's what he does. And he shoots from the hip more than any other politician that I've ever known in American history. So he says a lot of things that are incendiary. That is true. And he's going to have followers who are going to take his words and they're going to do things with them that he may or may not have intended. But to hold a public person accountable to the actions of people who follow them, that's a very dangerous thing too. Like there are legitimate reasons to do it, but there are also non-legitimate reasons.
And it's not about Trump. Let me make this clear. I could give I'm going to say the wrong things here about him personally. I don't care. It's the American public that is the victim here. And inflating and throwing gas on this fire is just the wrong move. And you don't want to go down that road. The other part of it is that Twitter is not the only one. It's Facebook has canceled Trump. It's YouTube has canceled Trump. Spotify has canceled Trump. Stripe Services has cut off his money. And as of yesterday, Pinterest. Right? Wait a minute. Wow. Pinterest. So that means Donald Trump can no longer post his glitter coffee cup pictures, right? Or whatever, his rustic kitchen in the White House.
And not only that, there had been talk even after he lost the election that he would run in 2024.
Yeah.
That was widely discussed. How the heck is he going to do that now? I think he's been completely kneecapped. And, he did a lot of really dumb things in the lead up to everything that happened on January 6th. I'm not absolving him. But the actions of this is all big tech. I mean, look, this is no secret. They've had it in for him since 2015.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we all know this. So let's not kid ourselves. So this has been a long-standing war that's been going on. And this is really the final end game of that war, it seems like. I think they've blocked Trump. I think he'll be effectively prevented from doing any kind of political run if he wanted to do that in 2024. I think he's going to it's a major uphill battle at this point, whereas it would not have been if all of this had just not happened somehow.
Well, I had, and this is again, the comparisons to 1984, I think are starting to get off base here. But I'll say this: I had just on two different networks, two competing networks, both say the same thing. Where's President Trump been? Nobody's heard from him. And I'm like, what? Where can he speak from? What can he do? All the avenues have been completely shut down. I don't know. The alternative, okay, can he go live on television from the Oval Office? I suppose. But all the social
networks will cover him. That's he's done some speeches and the networks have refused to cover him.
Clipped it.
So, I don't know. He probably wouldn't be able to.
And a press conference at this point, I just don't see they've cut him off from just about every avenue there is. So of course we haven't heard from him. He doesn't have a platform to go and speak on.
Well, he can still pardon Julian Assange, if anyone's listening. That would be a good thing.
Edward Snowden?
Snowden, yeah. I would favor that for sure.
Now, that is something else.
It doesn't look like he's going to do it. Maybe he'll pull a rabbit out of his hat before he leaves the office, but doesn't look like it.
Now,
to me.
when you have a company like Stripe, which literally, if you are in e-business or e-commerce anywhere on the known universe, you use Stripe for your for your merchant services, right?
That's right.
And for that, all the way over to Pinterest, which is confusing to me, but Shopify, right? All of this mercantile side of things, is this coordinated? Right? Do we have the CEOs of these different companies on a Zoom call?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's what happened to Alex Jones a couple of years ago. It was like boom, 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 all at once. I think there has to be coordination. There can't not be coordination. So, you don't require that many corporations. Obviously, Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey have to know each other exceedingly well. I'm sure they talk all the time. And so how difficult is it for them to have a phone call and make a decision?
Zuck, I got an idea.
And everyone else does.
Right. There was now there's a situation that is very similar to all of this. You brought up Alex Jones, but that is David Icke. And David Icke, who I know personally, I mean, I've hung out with, he's a cool guy. And whether you approve or disapprove of his views or his opinions, that's one thing. I've had him on the show numerous times. Last year, this group published a letter and sent it out to all of the tech companies for them to ban David Icke. And in that letter is me. right? And they list, and I'm reading the letter, and it's all over the internet. I'm like freaking out. I call them now. I'm calling. I'm like, oh my, you know, and I'm reading. It says right there, and it listed like 6 different supporters of the that are part of the David Icke network, and it was right there in London,
man.
right. And I thought, okay, here it comes, right? They sent this to YouTube. They sent this to Twitter. They sent this to CNN. They sent it to everybody. And it's a short list, and I'm in the middle of it, and it's like, wait a minute. How am I, A, on the list, but B, for somebody out there to go into this cancel culture and have the ability to do this? And it worked. Now, I got, how do I say this? I got away pretty unscathed. David lost everything. You know, he lost everything. He lost all of his, you know, what he was left with was his website that was getting hacked. Now, is that cool? No, it's not, but it's also you are legitimizing the person that you think you are removing from the public because his information is dangerous.
In a way, but they are removing him. Like they are seriously hindering him. Facebook's banning more than just people. Just today, Facebook banned the phrase "Stop the Steal."
I saw that.
Banned from Facebook. I mean, I wouldn't have thought you could make this stuff up, but here we are. You cannot use the phrase "Stop the Steal."
I couldn't even report the news on that. Because I thought, okay, if I put "Stop the Steal" in this announcement, right, suddenly I am going to. So I didn't even announce it. I didn't even announce it.
Will come down on you.
You know, and there are automated systems right now, talk about Orwell, that are scanning this program as you and I speak, and they're looking for keywords, right? Not a human. And they pick, Fade to Black said "Stop the Steal" 14 times, and I get a community strike.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
I don't want to get you in trouble, man.
But that's where we are. And that's where we are. And big tech now, when let's back up for a second. The key word, there's like 3 key words that are being used today: censorship, communism, and socialist, right? Socialism. These are being used fairly freely when I don't think that everybody really understands.
Used by people on the right side of the spectrum. That's true.
Yes.
People on the left side of the spectrum are not using those phrases, those words. They're using other words.
And what was the first phrase? Okay, I just said
censorship.
Censorship. Okay. Dude, I'm telling you, I'm in the video game Silent Hill. What's your definition of censorship?
That's a good question. Well, there's a traditional definition of censorship, and then there's the current reality of censorship. So the traditional version of censorship is a state or government or official political body or power preventing certain kinds of ideas from being expressed. All right. So that could be through books, that could be through newspapers and all of that. That's gone for, since Gutenberg invented the printing press, essentially we've seen different versions of that. Contemporary censorship is a lot more fluid than that. So it doesn't have to rely on federal or state law. It can, but what we have is a situation in which these massive corporations, which are essentially monopolistic, I mean, Facebook and Twitter aren't total monopolies, that is true, but they are close to it. And let's include YouTube as well with Google. And in fact, let's include Google as a search engine. I mean, they're not a full monopoly, but they're pretty darn close.
96% of the world counts as a monopoly when it comes to Google and the search engine.
What did you say?
96%.
And that's what Google has. 96%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. So we'll look at those organizations, and when they actively, as they do, either outright ban or shadow ban or soft censor in one way or another, or derank and so forth for explicitly political purposes, which is what they do, then we have to include that as censorship. I think we're making a very huge oversight if we do not include that. When I hear some people, it's amazing to hear this. Is people on the left are now saying this. This used to be something you'd hear on the right. Private companies can do what they want. And so they can, Twitter's a private company. They can do whatever they want. You don't like it, go to another platform. Go to Parler. Oh, wait, sorry, can't go to Parler.
Right.
So, but that's a false argument, in my view, because first of all of those big tech organizations work hand in glove with the national security apparatus now anyway, and we know this. They had congressional hearings. Like they are. Facebook has hired the Atlantic Council, for God's sake, the most neoconservative, warmongering bunch of bloodthirsty people you could imagine, and they are guiding Facebook's policies on anything to do with international relations and what can be said there. Basically, they want to have more fights against Russia. That's what they're all about. They're war hawks. So these organizations are in bed with political actors out of D.C. They're not official. The Atlantic Council is not part of the U.S. federal government, but they have people who were part of that government. They're all part of the D.C. culture, and Facebook is part of that. So I think we really have to include big tech as a branch of government. They are doing the work that, let's use this phrase, the deep state. There is such a thing, the intelligence community and those guys. Big tech is doing the work that those political actors explicitly want, but can't do by law. So you get big tech to do it. They're private companies. They're all wearing, they're all part of the same club, a club that we're not in, as George Carlin put many years ago. So I think that's what we have to understand when it comes to contemporary censorship. I think that, people are forgetting that we're going through a revolutionary period in human history, and we cannot look at censorship the way that you might have looked at it in 1950. That's not adequate.
No, it's two different conversations.
Understanding of censorship today.
But is this an example of when Facebook pulls the move that they have done, and Twitter, by banning Trump, that they wield more power than any government? And
in many ways, that is true.
And there's nothing that you can
go further.
Right.
Go further. Take a guy like Trump. In some way, you think about him in 2015, 2016, when he was running for office. And here's the thing about this guy, all right? You say all you want about his personality. There's lots of things you can criticize, narcissism and womanizer and all of these other things, all true. Horrible messenger in so many ways. But the fact was, the reason he won in 2016 is because of his message. What was his message? He spoke to an entire group of people that felt that they were disenfranchised. Working class and middle class people. That's who he talked to. No one had done that since Ralph Nader tried in the 90s. Even Bernie Sanders really didn't do it, in my opinion. Because Trump was also talking against all the wars, the forever wars. Who the hell did that? Answer, no one. Not Bernie, not Hillary. She's a proponent of those things. Here was Trump, candidate Trump. Let's distinguish candidate from president here. But Trump came in as a candidate who talked against the wars, and really very forthrightly so, frankly, and against the trend of globalization, which is what Ralph Nader was all about in the late 90s. Nader did it from the left, Trump did it from the right, but they were talking the same game. And so Trump gets in. So here's this outsider. And he really was an outsider. Yes, he had political friends, but total political novice, and really went in utterly unprepared when he came in. So he gets hammered. Michael Flynn, the one guy who actually had some really good ideas on reforming the intelligence community, gets taken out immediately. Flynn, back in 2012, was talking about how Islamic State had been covertly assisted by U.S. intelligence. When I heard that in 2012, I'm like, who the hell is Michael Flynn?
Right.
Like, I was blown away by that. So Trump brings that guy in to head the intelligence. He was his director of intelligence. I was amazed. But Trump was so, you have to say, like, incompetent in so many ways about running his program. But here's my point. You have the ultimate outsider who comes in and he becomes president, like against all odds, really.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just the Democrats who didn't like him. The Republicans hated him. Like, they hated him. And he wins. And he was utterly allowed him. He got surrounded by all the same neocons that would have surrounded Hillary and that do now surround Biden, like the same group of people. So what we have to conclude is that, like, for any U.S. president to actually truly reform the system or drain the swamp, as he said, like, it's basically impossible. I think it just can't be done. I don't see how it can be done. You could have someone like Trump who's better than Trump at doing it. Who's that going to be? I don't know who that person is. So we're at a point. It's not just that big tech is bigger than the president. Yes, but a lot of things are bigger than the U.S. president. The intelligence community is bigger than the U.S. president. The military-industrial complex is bigger than the U.S. president.
Well, and so what's the message that is sent out to the world when, somebody like, President Trump, or any sitting president for that matter, but in this case it's President Trump with his influence, to just throw them off their network? What's the message? It's just like, he can't do anything about it.
That's right.
He can't flip a switch.
That's right. Was he going to sue?
What's he going to sue?
Good luck with that.
Right, exactly.
It's not going to go anywhere.
And Zuckerberg knows this, right?
That's right.
Jack Dorsey knows this.
Trump's got money, but Zuckerberg and Dorsey have way more money.
way
much more.
But that's the message to the world here, yes. and to all the politicians and to the rest of the average Joes and Janes like myself and you.
Joe Biden will be treated well by the media because he knows he is a Washington insider. He's been there for 50 years. He knows extremely well what his role is going to be. And so he's not going to make any waves in that regard the way Trump did. I mean, we're really, in a sense, we're making a mistake when we see this as a Democrat versus Republican argument. I mean, yes, in some ways there is. There are social and cultural issues that people genuinely get worked up over. I understand that. But in a larger sense, we are looking at establishment versus anti-establishment. And it would be wrong to portray Trump as a true anti-establishment president. He wasn't. In so many ways he was not. But he did have anti-establishment rhetoric and did in some ways actually truly oppose the establishment, and primarily not in so much in foreign policy, although a little bit, but primarily in his stance on globalization.
Now,
and things like that. So like that actually made him the true enemy of, let's say, globalist-oriented establishment, power players. That was completely, the Davos crowd, the Bilderberg crowd, like those individuals.
That's where I'm going. I've got to take a break right here, Richard. Yeah. But I think it's a clear message where no matter who gets elected and goes in on January 20th to the brand new, office and sits down at the desk and is moving their pens around and the phone rings and you pick it up and it's your boss, right? You may be the president, but there are things out there that are more powerful than you.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I guess tonight, Richard Dolan. Yeah. You have never heard this conversation on Fade to Black before, and there's more to come when we come back after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan is our guest, and talking about all this big tech and what is going on and data and everything else. Right now is the time to get Virtual Shield VPN, because there are suggestions that our credit scores might be based on our internet history in the near future. This is being discussed right now. The same way banks use data like income to judge a credit eligibility, right now is how websites could use internet search history in the future. If you want to prevent this from happening to you, use the very best VPN right now so you can have your search history separate from your personal data. I highly recommend Virtual Shield VPN. You can see the studio here. I have got 6 computers that run this show, all run Virtual Shield VPN. All you have to do is go to Virtual Shield /Fade to Black. And get it right now. And 50% off today if you click on the video description below. Right now, that link in the description box. Virtual Shield VPN. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan. And now, Richard, social media is one thing, but is the media guilty here? Is the media, the way that they have allowed biased opinion headlines slanted in one direction across the board, they're not going to backpedal. They're not going to admit to being a part of this situation that we find ourselves in, but they're as guilty as anybody, aren't they?
Of course they are. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you can liken what we have seen. This is something that's going to, I'm sure some people will support what I'm about to say, and some people are going to be very upset with what I'm about to say. But there's a model that existed even before we had Donald Trump. And for what we have seen since 2016, and that model is called color revolution. Something I've studied extensively. I was about to write a book on false flags. I ended up doing a series for Gaia TV on false flags instead, but a lot of that has to do with color revolution, and it's a technique of destabilizing a nation that the United States intelligence community perfected. I mean, actually, back in the 50s and 60s, they were doing it, and then they handed it over to the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, in the early 1980s, and they do the work. And this is according to the NED's founder. He says, we do the work that the CIA used to do. And they're an NGO, and they funnel money into countries, billions of dollars, and they destabilize those countries. They create radicals. They dominate the media. They create a mood in the nation to get people to the edge, and they try to catch lightning in a bottle and try to have a successful revolution. And it's worked many times. It's failed at other times. But it can work, and it's a technique. Back in 2016, I was looking at that model as going on here in the United States, because what you really had was there was an establishment candidate that year. That was Hillary Clinton, and it was obvious. I mean, anyone who wants to deny that 95% of the media was against Donald Trump, you had Fox, and then you had everyone else, essentially. So they were supporting Trump partially. Fox had a lot of old line Republicans that were not happy with Trump either, and that remains true today. But they had a Republican base, and so they did support Trump. But the entire rest of the establishment media, did not, and they made this into an Armageddon. So it was something that no one had ever seen in the United States before. Like, we had never seen a situation in which the media overtly got on board into such an extreme partisan way, as if it were life and death. And they convinced. I remember when Trump got elected, there were people who were actually crying, believing that they were going to be carted off to camps. Like, that's what they had come to believe. And I just kept thinking, how did you come to believe that? Well, we know how they came to believe that. It was an entire media drumbeat. And so that drumbeat never stopped. And I'm suggesting, and look, I don't have every single bit of detail, because I'm not an inside player here, and I don't know how this all went down. But I think we have to understand that there's a model that's in place, and the United States has now had that model, in my view, turned upon itself. And I think we really have to consider that. And if someone who's listening to this who hates Trump, and I understand, like, I'm not trying to say to you, oh, Donald Trump is some wonderful man. I'm not saying that. But there are motivations that the top elite establishment players of this world have, and there are desires that they have, and having Trump in office was not one of those desires. Shortly before the election, Julian Assange, I think, famously said, Trump will not be allowed to become president. Okay, well, Assange was proven wrong there, but his fundamental analysis, I think, was right, in which, he was saying the established powers of the United States, and indeed of the Western world, were going to do everything possible to prevent this man from becoming president. And when he did become president, they did everything possible to take him out in every conceivable way. Like, we've never seen 4 years like this. Now, the opposition to Trump said, well, he caused his own problems. He's the renegade, and we've got to stop him from turning America into a fascist state. You hear this all the time. But I don't see it that way. And I see Trump as very problematic in a lot of ways, but I've never seen him as a man who's explicitly trying to bring fascism to the United States.
Now,
I'm not saying he doesn't want to be a strong, have a lot of power, but that's what every American president. That doesn't distinguish him from every single president that we have had in our lifetime, to be quite frank.
Now,
it doesn't distinguish him from Obama or from George W. Bush or even from Bill Clinton.
Now, I remember as I was listening to the campaign continue before he was elected, where he was alluding to conspiracy theories, right? And and I was hearing this, and what I had said the night of the election, we did a special live broadcast. I don't know if you were part of it, but we did a live broadcast, and then I had said shortly after that, and then I never brought up anything again for almost. I said, I I don't know if we necessarily want to have somebody that believes in conspiracy theory in the Oval Office.
Why not?
Hold on. Because our community understands conspiracy theory. We know how to deal with it. We know how to explore it, understand it, dismiss it. We don't go off the deep end. But the rest of the country is not us. It's not our community. Right. And you start downloading conspiracy theory on a country that's not prepared for it and hasn't dealt with it in the past, this could get a little bit dangerous. And ultimately, the media runs with it, and social media. And now,
well, what they did is they've completely discredited any idea of conspiracy theory. I mean, this is what they have done. I deal with conspiracy theory. Like, you could say that's part of my profession.
It's my profession,
with the UFO cover-up,
yes.
And I deal with conspiracies. I know there are conspiracies. I have known for many decades that there are conspiracies. You're not going to convince me otherwise. No one will, because I know that they're real.
And
so, and also the phrase conspiracy theory, as far as anyone has been able to determine, seems to have been a creation of the CIA itself in a 1967 memo that was explicitly dealing with ways of disabling the JFK alternative conspiracy theories. And so what this CIA memo was trying to do is to find ways of kneecapping those people. So using that phrase in the media, like they were saying, let's use our media friends, and they'll introduce this person as a conspiracy theorist. Like, that's I think that is the origin of so anytime someone's using the phrase conspiracy theory in a kind of conventional way, they're literally doing the work of the CIA more than 50 years ago. They're actually doing the work. So to dismiss someone, as a conspiracy theorist, and it's almost, you could say, well, he's being a conspiracy theorist for saying this, but the fact is it's true. This was a CIA creation. So the fact that you've got a guy like Trump, who was not a career politician. He was a private guy. He was a private billionaire, made and lost his fortune however many times, but he was a private citizen. And no, it's not surprising that he'd be into all kinds of alternative theories about the world, as you are and as I am and as most of your listeners are. All right? So you get a guy who's like, he's down with some different ways of looking at it. Maybe an alternative way of looking at 9/11, God forbid. Okay? I don't know what his private beliefs on 9/11 are. He hasn't really said anything publicly that's against the mainstream. But the point is, like, you see this as a guy who, it's not hard for anyone to see that he was liable at any given point to veer away from the established party line on practically anything. That's what made him interesting. And he was the only president that we've had in our lifetime who was like that. There's no other president.
Last year, Rita and I, we were at a private gathering. I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but we sat down at this table. This is about 6 months ago, and it's Rita and I think we knew one person or two people at this table, but we were introduced to like 8 people for the first time. Okay? And we sit down, it's lunch.
Yeah.
And out of the gate, they don't know what I do for a living. They don't know this, right?
Okay.
And immediately it's, hi, I'm Jimmy, this is Rita, hi, blah, 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 blah. And out of the gate as the conversation, listen to me, Richard, as God is my witness, I didn't say a word. This happened with them. And it was conspiracy, this, that, back and forth across. And I sat back with her, and I leaned over to Rita. I go, I haven't spoken to anybody, right? I didn't start this.
So they were all into alternative.
Red
pilled, as it were.
Everything that was talked about was going on this table. And not to get into specifics, but my point is this. Everybody now is a conspiracy theorist, right?
Well, that's not a bad thing. Look, a lot of conspiracy theories are wrong. We all know that. There are people who do go off the deep end. I've seen it many times. So have you. So have many listeners. So but this is why free speech is so important. All right. If we don't believe in the ability of having an actual debate on ideas, then we don't believe in free speech. I mean, the best defense, the best statement defending free speech was actually someone on the left. It was Noam Chomsky a million years ago when he said, if you don't believe in freedom of speech for people you disagree with, then you don't believe in freedom of speech.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And that was Chomsky. All right. And he was spot on. But the point is, the best solution to conspiracy theories that go out of control is simply freedom of discourse, freedom of speech, so that we have the opportunity to interface with each other, and you can correct me when I'm wrong, and I can correct you when you're wrong, and so forth. And we can try to reason it out. Now, look, we're driven by emotions, and not everyone does that. Most of us don't do that even on a good day. But it can happen, and it does happen. And over time, freedom of expression does lead to truth. And if someone doesn't believe in that, then they do not believe in freedom of speech. And the fact is, we have to be real here. There are many people who do not any longer believe in freedom of speech. We're going through a massive cultural change. This is being brought in from above. Big tech is a big part of it. And they're working undoubtedly with the Davos folks and the Bilderberg folks. There's no question about this in my mind. And they are actively working to create a new culture, and they're doing it. And that is a culture of conformity to so-called authoritative sources. And you hear this phrase, authoritative, frequently now. YouTube uses it all the time. I'm sure Google, and Facebook probably use it. Authoritative. We only use authoritative sources. What the hell does that mean?
And who makes that determination?
Exactly.
And
these are political determinations.
We saw this about halfway
Not
through.
partisan people. But
No, it's not. Well, that's my point I'm about to make. About halfway through 2020, suddenly we see this new platform adopted by the tech companies that if you don't toe the party line and the establishment line on COVID and vaccines, you're done. And like Del Bigtree, silenced, removed, right? Of course, David Icke,
yes.
right? And others, where if you say anything other than these points, you're going to lose your social media platform and your ability to speak about this at all. And any alternative ideas, any opinions, any conversation that could be had about it was absolutely silenced.
And their justification was for public safety. That's how they justify it. So they're saying, we listen to the science, and this is authoritative. And if you are going to talk against vaccinations in this instance, then you are endangering public safety, and we are going to remove your voice. That is their justification. There are many people who agree with that. That is a large segment of the population. I don't know what the percentage is, but I'll guarantee there's a lot of people who support that. So their support for freedom of speech is contingent, it seems to me, and I'm not trying to single those folks out. You could look at this in a lot of ways, from a lot of perspectives, but their support of freedom of speech is essentially for those people who agree with them.
Now, somebody that makes a video, publishes it on YouTube, and says 5G is causing COVID, and Bill Gates is injecting microchips into your system for the New World Order. Right, it ties all of this stuff together. Crazy for most people. On the other part, somebody's going to listen to that video and go up and start blowing up 5G cell phone towers.
Well,
which started but my point is that enough to justify somebody's opinion and shutting down a YouTube channel?
No, actually, it is not enough to justify that.
Right.
So if you're going to make an argument, I mean, people do make this argument that 5G caused COVID, and I don't believe that argument at all. And if someone's going to make that argument, they have to provide evidence. And I seriously doubt that is an argument that, if it were allowed to propagate, which it isn't, but even if it were, even as dumbed down as we have all become, I still seriously doubt that that is an argument that would get a lot of traction. I would be very skeptical that it would. Again, you have to have trust in the free marketplace of ideas. If you don't have trust in that, then you don't have trust really in the foundational principles of the United States of America.
So
just give it up.
And how do we start to not necessarily put the car in reverse, to use that analogy again, when it comes to conspiracy theory, but how do we educate people on how to understand conspiracy theory as opposed to going into a cancel culture and saying that all of this is wrong and you're going to be deplatformed? How do we do the right thing? And
well, I've been trying. This is what I've been trying to do for over 20 years, and to talk about cover-ups and conspiracies in a way that can be supported by evidence. And that's really what I try to do. And whether I succeed or not, that's up to readers and followers to decide. But that's always what I've tried to do. So you make evidence-based arguments, and then you let your chips fall where they fall. I don't know of any other way to do it. Now, what I thought you were going to say was something different. I thought you were going to say, like, where will people go? How will we put the gear in reverse against this assault on freedom of discourse, which is really what we're seeing.
Right.
And maybe a month or two ago, I would have said, well, people have the ability to go to other platforms. Like, don't support Facebook if you believe that they are inhibiting your right to say certain things. And there are many people who believe that. But the fact is that alternative venues it's not going to be an easy game for them. Like an alternative social media, where's that going to come from? A competitor to Facebook, competitors to Twitter. Well, we thought that was going to happen, but that is going to be a non-starter very probably. So they've become effectively monopolies in this last week. So I don't know where people are going to go and if it's even going to be possible. However, I don't rule out the ability for, there's a lot of dissatisfied people, right? And they feel that they don't have a voice, that they're not able to have their voice expressed. They feel afraid to speak their mind. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I am afraid frequently to speak my mind. I mean, I'm in a public position.
You and I have talked about this many, 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 many times.
Yeah, privately we have.
Yes.
And maybe publicly too. But no, you and I have had private conversations about this. And I mean, it has scared me to death on many occasions, like one misstep. But I can't let that guide me ultimately, but it's always there. But for so many other people, like, they've got jobs to worry about. They've got their careers, they've got their family and all of these other things to worry about. And they are afraid. And so now what's going to happen with all of that energy? And the problem with deplatforming thousands and thousands of people, is it millions of people? I don't know. But when you deplatform what seems to be an entire movement based on ideology, which is really what this does look like, then you're giving that opposition no ability to dissent openly using words.
That's right.
So what are you doing? Now you're radicalizing them even further.
Underground.
That's right. And so you're making a bad situation worse. Like, the solution to this is by more discussion, not less discussion, and by actually trying to understand each other. This morning I listened again to Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! I've listened to her on and off for years. I know what she's about. She's very much on the left. I listened to her take on D.C. And while I didn't agree with everything she said, at least I can say I understand her emotions. And that is important. I've also listened to people on the right talking about the exact same event and hearing them talk about false flags and Antifa or BLM inserting themselves into what happened on the 6th. I don't know that that's true, but what I'm saying is, at least I'm trying to be aware of strong opinions on both sides of this. And it's not easy, actually, to do that, but it's something that we really have to do. Because, when Lincoln was elected to presidency in 1860, his point to the states of the South who didn't vote for him at all, of course, he said, look, you think you can move away from this nation, but we can't get away from each other. Like we're here and you are there, and we are forever going to be right here. So we've got to work this out. And that sentiment is every bit as true today.
Oh, it's so strong.
We have got to find a way to listen to each other and not reflexively to say you're full of BS, because that's the quickest way to shut everything down. You've got both sides of this are convinced that the other side is trying to destroy them.
See,
it's not just one side that believes it. Both sides believe this.
And this audience needs to really understand one thing. Richard and I right now are having a conversation. Okay? Richard and I privately disagree and go right to the edge of arguing a lot. Right?
Yes.
A lot.
That's true. Yes.
But we respect each other. You know, and that's the part that's lost here. You know, you may not be able to change somebody's mind, and I understand that, and people are so entrenched today, but we have to listen. We have to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. It's the only way to go forward. We can't go backwards now, can we, Richard?
I grew up with a liberal mother and a conservative father.
Oh, there you go.
That was my house.
There you go.
I was very used to these types of disagreements. So for me, I get both sides usually.
When we come back after the break, I want to talk about something that I saw yesterday that was absolutely remarkable. And it's a video, maybe you have seen it, Richard, of Alex Jones going off on a QAnon guest on his show. And
I heard about this. I didn't see it. I read about it.
Holy crap. Right. And so what he said, you know, that QAnon's all lies. We'll discuss this after the break. But QAnon also got entrenched in 2020. I didn't think anybody really expected that and to see it happen like it did. And now QAnon has disappeared, and those QAnon supporters out there, because there's no Q post, there's nothing happening, and everything that was predicted didn't happen. As far as I know, JFK did not get on Trump's ticket in Dallas, right? And JFK Jr. And so for all of those, how do they deal with that emotionally? How do they deal? I mean, where their world is suddenly pulled out from underneath them. This is something else that we're going to have to deal with.
Oh, the Q people.
And others that go in fully with these conspiracy theories.
All right. So we're going to do that when we get back?
Yes, we do. I'm watching Richard. He's thinking. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Richard Bleepin' Dolan. Follow Richard on Twitter right now, @Rich Dolan. You can follow me, @JChurchRadio. If there is anybody left on Twitter tonight to follow us, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Bleepin' Dolan. I'm going to throw Richard under the bus. He texted me. He said, hey, man, can we do just one more segment? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to mention anything to the audience and inflame them. And I would never do that, Richard. I would never get the audience to start tweeting that and put you in an uncomfortable position. But Alex Jones did just that, right? The big conspiracy theory guy to go and just disenfranchise, like half or maybe his entire audience with that
I think
yesterday.
He got a little bit of mainstream media love for that too, or at least
he did. Oh, whoa! Yeah. Maybe he'll get his YouTube channel back. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's the move. Is that?
I don't know.
Well, there's a money flow there, right? Where he's got a network, he's got a show, he's got products, he's got his store, he's got all of this.
Exactly.
And you're turning around and doing that. Is it a point where maybe an age where you just don't care anymore, that you're going to speak the truth, no matter how painful it is to rip off the Band-Aid?
Well, it could be that. He could have that could be a genuine thing about him. Or it could just be the fact that he realizes that he's probably taken a massive financial hit over the last couple of years, and maybe he's using an opportunity to get back into the good graces with the establishment, or at least better graces. I don't know. I can't really speak for him at all. But it is interesting that he went right after QAnon. He's like, I want no part of that, or words to that effect.
Yeah, he threw his head in his hands and just said, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I just can't take it. Earlier, I want to take this opportunity in this last segment. We started to get into some definitions. And one of the things in social media today, I see it everywhere. I post whatever. I post ice cream cones and, oh, you're a communist. It's like, dude, stop with that. But
literally ice cream cones, or are you just using some example?
No, Richard, it didn't happen, but it could. You want me to do it? I could do it right now in real time. But
is that a meme I just hadn't caught up with?
That's
right.
Ice
cream cones, does that mean something?
But that's where we are today, right? It's exactly. Like it's crazy town. And you're a historian. What's your definition of communism?
Okay, well, a requirement that individuals within a given society or community are provided, let's say, roughly equal material goods and outcomes in their life. So people living as equals economically, as well as any other measurable way. Enforced equality, basically, is communism.
Do you see that ever as a possibility in the future of the United States?
Not in every way, no. There's always going to be, well, in every communist society, there was still first class and the rest. And, the Soviets were notorious for having very unequal modes of living for the party of bosses and everyone else. So there's no society. Orwell's Animal Farm is a great study in this. Some animals are more equal than others. But I think in some ways we could see that in the Western world. Yes, I think that's very likely. I mean, look, we're imploding our economic society right now. All right, so over 2020, I don't know how many small businesses are ever going to come back over the closings that we've seen. I mean, the estimates, the last I heard, were 50% are not going to come back.
Right.
Maybe it's going to be more than that. There are so many jobs that are gone now that will not come back. Cashiers, that might be one of the most popular jobs in the country. That's going away in a large measure now. Not entirely, but a lot of those jobs are gone and will continue to be gone. Warehouse workers and like a whole bunch of interactive, like working class jobs many of them are not going to come back. So we're moving into a new economy, and we're at a point where, just a year ago, before this pandemic started, the whole idea of universal basic income was still an outlier. I mean, there was Andrew Yang talking about it, it's true, but no one was really looking at it as a serious thing. But now they are. And the reason is that we're going to have a massive group of people who will be structurally unemployed and eventually unemployable, because in this economic game of musical chairs, too many chairs are being taken out of the room and there's just not enough for people to sit in. So what will we do with all these folks? Well, they're going to have to be supported somehow. And so what we're looking at is essentially more and more people becoming wards of the state. And I don't know what point that's going to get to, but it's going to become a significant, or at least potentially it could be a very significant part of the world population. There's just not going to be anything for people to do. I think that's part of what I was talking about, this fourth stage of humanity, that this is part of what I'm looking at. This is why I foresee the potential of humanity, in a sense, turning into a big anthill, in the sense that when you are not afforded economic liberty, we've been talking about freedom of speech. That's very important. But maybe even more important than that, or at least of equal importance, is economic freedom. The freedom for you and me and everyone listening to be able to have at least the opportunity to determine their own financial fate and their future. And that means by, if they wanted to, strike out on their own with a business or an opportunity. Those opportunities are diminishing also. Now, for a while, they were kind of growing digitally, like people could go onto YouTube and try to make money that way. But I think we're seeing that restricting more and more also. And in the traditional economy, that's definitely becoming less and less of a thing that people can do. You have fewer and fewer corporations owning more and more market share in any industry you can think of. And so if someone wants to get a job in that industry, chances are they're going to have to do it through a major or a significant corporation. So the wiggle room for people economically is also diminishing.
Now,
so in that kind of society, you're talking about communism, not exactly, but I do think that we're seeing a society in which there's much less economic initiative that will be enabled for people to have.
Okay, I'm tweeting out now pecan pie. Okay, there you go. That's my tweet. Pecan pie. And let's see what the first
fascist.
Yeah.
You communist.
Socialist. I'm a socialist, Richard.
Wait, what just happened here?
Yeah, I'm now, because I said pecan pie, I'm a socialist. Help me understand, because I'm confused. What is socialism? What is a socialist?
Well, that's a little more of a flexible thing to describe. Socialism, I think the way it's come, in the old days, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, a.k.a. Lenin, saw socialism as simply the step toward communism. But I think what we've come to understand socialism as is communism without the dictatorship. So I think that's what people will generally think of. So now that's a hard thing to do, because any act of enforcing economic equality is going to be an act of coercion. It is impossible to enforce an equality of outcome without the central hand of the state forcing that. It's literally impossible otherwise. So there are socialistic things that some societies do, whether it's universal health care. Is that socialism? Well, I'll go, okay, sort of, sure, why not? So there are socialistic things that capitalistic societies can afford to do because they're wealthy enough, mainly because they have free enterprise and they can generate wealth and they can pay for certain socialistic outcomes, certain safety nets, which I think most of us, all of us, probably agree are a good thing. I certainly feel that social safety nets are a very good thing and a necessary thing.
So if we had universal health care paid by the government,
right?
Are we socialist?
No, I don't know. That's a tricky thing. I don't know how I would feel about that. You could say that's a socialistic policy. Does that make the whole society socialist? No, it doesn't. If the society is still employing free enterprise or capitalistic means of making its money in other areas, then I would say it's not, at least it's not entirely socialist. I don't think that'd be accurate. But certainly a universal health care is a socialistic policy, and I don't say that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you can make an argument for it. You could also make an argument for just taking out all the insurance companies, which have absolutely jacked up the price of medical care ridiculously, just as the student loan industry has jacked up the price of education ridiculously. I mean, that's an open and shut case. They've done a great deal of harm to both of those industries. But in lieu of taking them out and having the market work, like that's never going to happen. So, I've often thought universal health care, I think it's better than what the United States is currently using. I'm not a fan of the United States healthcare system at all. But I don't think it makes a country socialist per se, no. I guess I would push back against that.
I just tweeted out double cheeseburgers. Just went out.
You bastard. Can I say that word on your show?
Yes, you just did. I'm a fascist.
I just did, but is that going to get you dinged?
Yeah, I'm a fascist. And again, it's such it
People don't think you're losing your mind.
I know. You remember the movie
pie and cheeseburger? What's up with church?
You remember the movie Princess Bride?
Yes, that was a fun movie.
Yeah, one of the best quotes in the movie. I don't think you know what that word means.
Yes.
Right. And fascist. What does that mean?
Oh, well, that word's been completely obliterated in the last 5 years. It has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, especially the last 7 days too, as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, people. It's just it's absurd to hear how people use that word now. But there is such a thing as fascism. Almost 20 years ago, I wrote an article. This is in the early W. Bush years, shortly after 9/11. And I wrote an article trying to introduce a phrase called invisible fascism. Didn't really go anywhere, but I think it's still a valid idea. Like, in other words, I was asking a question. This is back in 2002, 03, I don't know. I said, can you live in a fascist society without knowing it? Like fascism of the 1930s, that was in your face. That's Hitler's brown shirts, Mussolini's black shirts.
They wore uniforms.
Spain,
yes.
They gave it to you. You knew it.
Yes.
They had parades, the whole thing, like, this is fascism. But fascism became a very bad thing after World War II, obviously. And so, but that didn't mean that desires for that type of control over a society went away. And so in the aftermath of 9/11 and the USA Patriot Act, I was looking around at the United States thinking, what the hell has happened to my country? Have we moved into a mode of fascism in a way? And my answer was, yeah, we have partially.
I agree with that.
So I said, is this, but it's a situation where people don't know it. And that's the best way to do it.
Let me back up. I'm going to remind you of something, Richard. It wasn't 9/11 that was the big turn. It wasn't. It was the Unabomber. You need to back up, okay? Back up about 5 years.
Take it back to the 90s. I'm not going to argue too much against you here.
Yeah, and the reason why, the search was on for the Unabomber, right?
Right.
And I'm flying around the country speaking every single week. I'm getting on a plane. And I'm up in Sacramento.
1996,
the search.
Right.
So I'm up in Sacramento, flying back to Burbank. I'm at the airport when all of these law enforcement people came into the gate area, where we were sitting for the plane. I've got my carry-on luggage, and they set up a table in front of the gate, and said, "Everybody, put your bags up here. We're searching your bags." I said, "No, you're not." "Oh, yes, we are, or you're not getting on the plane." I said, "What?" And this is the first time this has ever happened, right?
Right.
I put my luggage up. They go through my briefcase. They're going through everything. They have me open up. And I was so offended. They said, "No, this is the Unabomber." What? And I got it. And that was after that. That's when the bag searches at the airport became standard. And it was way before the Patriot Act. It was way before 9/11.
Well, that's one brick in the wall you're describing, and I think you're right.
But it warmed us up to it, is what I'm saying. You don't recognize it when it's
after Oklahoma City's bombing as well, of the Murrah building.
Yes,
that was a little bit earlier. Like, there were a number of trigger events that prompted certain reactions. I would still say, though, that it was 9/11 that was the big one, and that's the one that activated and justified. I mean, look, the USA Patriot Act was waiting in the wings.
It was a softball. See, that as rowdy and radical as it was, we let it happen because of the things that were leading up to that in the previous 5, 6, 7, 8 years, going back to Oklahoma City.
Following 9/11, you have the anthrax scare, and I hope people remember this, because that was one thing I did a whole dive into for my series when I did that for Guy on false flags. But anyway, point is, yes, Unabomber, I agree with you. I would still say 9/11 is the turning point at which the rest of the world following it, like, that's what brought the world into open surveillance, like, for the first time, and also the suspension of a lot of the protections, legal protections that people had under prosecution. Like, those ended with 9/11. The definition of terrorism changed after 9/11 as well. And a lot of things overtly. It was like, I described it once as like a debutante's coming out party. Like, the creeping fascistic tendencies were already there through the 90s, but 9/11 was the coming out. It's like, here we are. It was like out in the open. All the surveillance that had been done illegally in the past was now made legal after 9/11. So it was a kind of presentation of what was then the new normal. We didn't use that phrase back then, but that was the first new normal, and now we're in another new normal.
And today, on the news was announced on all of the networks that violence is now going to be at all state capitals between now and the inauguration.
Yeah. Who actually believes this?
And why is that news? What good is that for the nation to hear? Right? Isn't that a law enforcement issue that needs to be handled behind the scenes?
This honestly strikes me as a psyop.
Right.
Against us. That's really what I heard about this earlier today as well, and I thought this is a psyop propaganda. Beat you over the head with a hammer type of thing.
It's a perfect example of control.
Right. In the beginning of this, we were talking about comparing January 6th to 9/11. because people are making this comparison, and it's a ridiculous comparison. It's not anything close to it. What is different between now and 9/11, though, this is actually really key. When 9/11 happened, the nation was like, oh my God, terrorists from another country or other countries have attacked us. We must unite together to fight this external threat. So what's different now is that the threat is internalized. And so we are now officially divided against ourselves. And half of the country has essentially been turned into, if not open terrorists and terrorist sympathizers, frankly, if they're members of the Republican Party, then they're going to be terrorist sympathizers. That's literally the narrative now that we're seeing. And my Democrat friends really need to understand this too, because it's not like I'm trying to take one side over another. But if this were happening against Democrats, I would be absolutely just as indignant and just as afraid. Like, this is bad, no matter how it's going down. But we are seeing it's a psyop, and the results of this are going to be potentially every bit as bad or worse than the results after 9/11, and those results were bad. Now, one of the horrible results of 9/11, which we haven't discussed, is $16 trillion or more that the United States military spent on destroying other nations. So that's a horrible thing, and hopefully that won't be one result of this. But internally, the results of 9/11 were horrible and mendacious, and internally they look to be every bit potentially as bad as what we saw 20 years ago after that event. So, and the cause is nowhere near on the level of what happened on September 11, 2001. So, but we're looking at a reaction that's going to be, at least it appears possible that the reaction could be every bit as bad.
Now, January 20th, we're 9 days away. That comes and goes. January 21st, does this nation have amnesia?
In what way? What do you mean?
Did January 6th happen?
Will we forget and forgive?
Yes. I mean,
I don't know. That would be nice. Like, to just kind of move on. I don't know that that's going to happen. I doubt that will happen, because there's always ringleaders who want to stir the pot on both sides. So you're going to have people on the right who are going to be ultra pissed because they believe the election was stolen. There's a hell of an argument for that, by the way. I just want to say this. And I don't know. I've listened to people who've done deep dives into this, and I've listened to what their argument is, and they could be right. But the fact is, we're not able to have a discussion about it. That's the whole thing. Like, that whole conversation has been shut out. It's like, how dare you implicate this election? Well, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's an outrageous thing to ask. We've had questions about our elections for generations now. We had 2000. We had 2004. I remember before Keith Olbermann fully lost his mind, he was talking about potential, problems in the state of Ohio in the 2004 election. And he had a point, because the Diebold machines that were being used, these electronic machines, like, they were not auditable. That's a legit concern. And it's the same concern today. Why can't we talk about that? No matter what side you're on. Like, that's a legitimate thing to ask about. Anyway, my point is that we're moving now. I don't know if it's going to get how much worse it will be when Joe Biden becomes president. Like, is it going to be open fascism? No, I doubt that. Right. I doubt that. All right. Just like I doubted it under Trump. But what we will see, I think, is look, this is total establishment now coming in. It's not diluted establishment, which was what Trump was. Trump still was very establishment oriented in his policies in a lot of ways.
You can't be a billionaire and not be established. You just can't.
I agree with you totally. I agree. Except he wasn't establishment on the matter of borders, and he wasn't establishment on matters of trade and globalization. And that's the reality. So he was actually an enemy of the establishment on those matters, to the extent that he followed those policies. With Biden, it's going to be a reset back to straight on Davos policies. And so I think that will be bad for most people. There will be winners from that policy as well, though. There's winners and losers from these policies, and there are going to be people who will be very happy with what happens in a Biden administration. But I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people too. So where that's going to end, well, I mean, in the long term, I think I see pretty clearly where it's going to end. In the short term, I don't know. In the long term, we're moving toward a very tightly controlled, essentially a version of totalitarianism. And the big winner, by the way, of the 2020 pandemic sweepstakes was China, right? In every possible way you can imagine, economically, but also as a model of a society. You can see this. Like, there are Western leaders who are salivating at the thought of turning their country into the next version of China. You were talking earlier, basically a version of social credit. Like, your credit scores will potentially in the future be contingent on your web searches. If that's so, then we're moving toward a social credit system even more rapidly. That's the model of China.
China's been doing it for a long time. That's it. That's it.
We have been. Now, we've been doing it unofficially through big tech, not legally through law. That's been the big difference between the West and China. So ours is happening more informally, but every bit it's very real. And I think what we will probably see in the next administration is some ramping up of that. How much, I don't know. Hopefully not a lot, but I would be surprised if there were none. So we're moving toward the big ant colony, the China model. And I think that's really what we're seeing. China's developed a genius method of social control. Say what else you want about them. Like their method of totalitarian control is actually, I put it on like grandmaster chess level. You know, Bobby Fischer, Magnus Carlsen, Garry Kasparov level of genius in the sense of terrifying their population into compliance through a social credit system that people don't know how to fight that in China. There's really no effective way to fight it.
No, yeah, you walk into a restaurant and your cell phone gets pinged in China, which is a government-issued cell phone, and you don't have the social credits to enter that restaurant, you're going to get stopped. You can't even pay for your food.
Yeah, we're talking Black Mirror, of course.
Yes,
and
yes.
We're moving toward that. So the only question is, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take 2 years? Is it going to take 20 years? I don't know. It won't take longer than 20. Probably won't take longer than 10.
One last political question. A lot of things were unexpected. Did just happen. One, the election in Georgia, the special runoff, where now we have both houses and the White House now.
Yeah, it's Democrat.
It's all Democratic. Does that relieve stress? Or, you know, to get things done, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done because of what we have left on the table from 2020.
You're going to see a $9 trillion stimulus package. Is that the number they're talking about? So I would say get your gold and your Bitcoin or whatever alternate currencies you've got, because you're going to see, I think, a significant devaluation of the dollar.
And
can't be avoided forever.
Right. And is just like a monopoly with social media and Zuckerberg and Twitter. Having a monopoly in Washington, D.C. is not necessarily a good thing. I didn't want to see this happen. You need to have some check and balance, which is the way.
I don't know what else. I mean, there's going to be a lot that they'll try to push through, I would think. Stimulus that's number one. But the domestic anti-terrorism initiative, that clearly has been put on the table by Joe Biden himself. And what you really have to wonder, I mean, people on the right are wondering this. I don't know how significant this will end up being, but they're just wondering about a purge, you know, a great purge of conservative people and thinkers. Will that actually happen? I don't know. Maybe not. But and also I think you can probably predict probably some increase in U.S. military activity abroad.
Do you think? Do you see a third party? There's always been talk of one, and there's always been something running in the background.
Yeah, well, there's been no success with that ever. I mean, the closest was Ross Perot, and he got torpedoed. He was totally torpedoed in 2000, in 1992. What am I saying? Wow, it's been 30 years since we've had a third-party guy. So probably not, because it's too structurally difficult for a third party to really get traction. I mean, unless we change some laws, which that doesn't look likely. And there's been desires for third party for years and years and years, and it's not been successful for that reason. There's just too many legal hurdles for them.
Now, what's your prediction as we are out of time? I just need to tax your brain really quick. What's the economy going to do in 2021?
Well, the sooner we can put people back to work full time, the less painful it's going to be. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen before even the summer. I mean, no one's going to be allowed to have a society until they're vaccinated. That's just the reality. Like, whatever one thinks about the vaccine, it's irrelevant at this point. You're not going to be allowed to participate in society without it. So if they roll out the vaccine, people take their shot, it will be better to have people back to work sooner, because the longer you do the stimulus spending without an actual economy that's truly functioning, the deeper economic hole you're digging for yourself. So that future generation, this is not make-believe stuff. Like, people think that they can just print money with no repercussions, but that is not true. There are going to be repercussions. And, economists, people way smarter than me in this, have been saying for years, like, you cannot do this forever. Now, the fact is the United States has been getting away with it forever because the U.S. military basically rules most of the rest of the world and forces those nations to accept U.S. dollars. But that's not going to happen forever. That is absolutely not going to happen forever. This is why the U.S. took out Gaddafi in Libya, because he was going to get on a gold-backed dinar standard. But China and Russia are not going to be so easy for the United States to control like that. And, they've got their own plans. So I think the dollar could deal with some serious problems down the road, and that's going to be a problem for all Americans. And I don't know how bad it's going to get, but this is why get your gold, get your crypto, get something, get a hedge.
Now, what happens because our DNA at the basic level has been altered? Wearing masks, we don't recognize faces anymore. We don't see emotions.
I'll stay on for another segment. We're going to take this to the end.
Okay.
Right, because we got too much to discuss.
Okay, then let me take a break now. Is that okay? You're producing the show. Shall I roll it now? Just tell me and I'll hit the button. Okay, there you go. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan. We're going into overtime. Too much to discuss. Great conversation kicking off this week here on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with Richard when we come back. Stay with us.
To my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan, overtime. He insisted. I was mentally, I did it with my mind. Richard thought it was his decision. I am just smooth. I'm smooth. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Overtime with Richard Dolan. We have to finish what we just ended with. And my point being that our DNA has changed. We are now acclimated to face masks. We don't see facial expressions. We don't recognize people anymore. I don't know what's going to happen when the masks come off. We're not going to recognize or know how to react to people. But in the same respect with that, there is, how are we going to handle crowds in the future now? Going to a concert or things and because they have altered us. We've had 1 year of pummeling, Richard. I mean, Are you going to go to a rock concert with 35,000 people breathing on you?
It's not something that I probably would have done recently anyway. But
what about UFO conferences? What about our conference schedule? And
I don't know what that future is going to bring. I expect that we'll probably get back to that. I expect that we'll probably get back to being in crowds, but it may take some time. I think, and there will definitely be folks, I don't know what percentage, but I would bet that there will be a certain percentage of people who are not going to want to go back.
And you personally, how do you feel about it? Wandering into a crowd?
Not too concerned. I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to catch COVID. I actually got tested not long ago because I had to see my mother. She was ill and she unfortunately passed away. And because of that, I came back, I got myself tested, and I came back negative. So, but, I could get it. I don't want to get it. I don't want to have COVID-19. And I do know people who died. Angelina Joyner in our community, unfortunately, just recently passed away due to that. And she was a wonderful woman.
Her and her husband.
And her husband 1 day apart.
1 day apart.
Terrible. So it is a concern. I think we'd all be, deceiving ourselves if we were like, I'm not concerned about it. But I don't want to live my whole life in this state of fear. Like, I just don't think it's the right thing. And so I'm probably I'll put myself out there when I'm able to, when we are able to.
Well, what does this do for disclosure? Where before you and I and the community were getting together, 10, 12 times a year at these conferences and hanging out and discussing the message. Now, what does that do to? Is this going to be?
That's a good question.
Is it going to be an online discussion now? Is this
one of the things that UFO conferences did that? If someone doesn't go to these conferences, like they can't really appreciate, but they're a tremendous venue for mixing ideas and for people to meet, like behind the scenes. I think there's zillions of conversations like this. I mean, you've done it, I've done it a million times, and there's a lot brewing at these events, and I think that's their primary value. It's not like any of my lectures or your talks or anything like that. No, it's like what happens behind the scenes is really the value of these conferences. And yes, I could see that hindering or hampering our communication and sharing information. The main thing that I think with any disclosure movement that I think we can safely say that really in December of 2017 is when a new era kicked off in terms of UFOs and disclosure and UFOs in public discourse. That's with the New York Times, 2 articles, really all pushed by TDSA, To the Stars Academy, 100%. They have to take the credit for this. And that changed the dynamic of how the world has UFOs. But if you've noted, anyone who looks carefully, like you'll see there's a lot of things that have not been discussed in that conversation. And the one red line is discussion of a UFO cover-up. That's the red line. That's at least in mainstream conversations. Like, and in fact, the red line's even prior to that at this point. But the red line prior to that would be even trying to conclude what these objects are. Like, we still have this fiction of people saying, well, maybe it's the Chinese. Like, no, it's not the Chinese. Don't insult our intelligence. It's not the Russians. These things are not explainable. They haven't been explainable for decades and decades and decades. So no one's going there either. But the real red line is cover-up. Like they can't go beyond where they are right now. They have to keep pretending we don't know what they are, because if they do any more than that, then they're admitting that they actually got some conclusions, and they're basically being forced into admit that they've lied for an entire human lifetime. And that's the red line. So and our whole prior discussion this evening where we were talking about censorship, this is relevant here in the UFO conversation, because people like me, especially like people like me, like I've talked, I don't just talk about the UFO phenomenon, I talk about the political implications and of the cover-up itself. I've done that since I first came into this field 20 years ago. Like, that's been my primary focus. And so I talk about the cover-up, I talk about conspiracies, and that's going to be the thing that I foresee where, in terms of social media, in terms of big tech censorship, anything that's going to throw doubt onto the authoritative nature of the established positions on this is going to be really difficult to do. And conspiracy theories have been so relegated now to fringe, dangerous misinformation that my concern as a researcher of the UFO subject is that, people like me and others who study the political implications of this are going to have a rough time moving forward. That's my number one concern. And I think that this is where we can see big tech and big government collusion here working against genuine political analysis of the UFO cover-up.
Is it because it's going against the system and the establishment? Like, yeah. Jack Dorsey, pulls down Richard Dolan's Twitter account because he's going
probably as a favor to some person in the intelligence community who knows how expensive.
But isn't that the point? Yeah, isn't that the point?
Yeah. The UFO people, let's remind the listeners here, the UFO cover-up remains absolutely explosive when we start getting into the weeds of this thing. All right, it's a privatized, largely a privatized, with public input and public protection, military protection, squirreling away of this incredibly transformative knowledge, this secret that's being kept from the world. And when we start analyzing the methods by which this secret has been kept for more than 75 years now, that's, we're getting into areas of criminality by the government and an ongoing level of criminality. Someone is culpable here throughout all of these decades, all right? The torch continues to get passed, and so there are always people who have to follow the rule of CYA. They do not want this coming out. This is a very disruptive piece of information, the UFO reality, in every way conceivable. So no, I don't think that it's going to be allowed to come out this far. The only reason it came out as far as it did is not because the U.S. Navy voluntarily did any of this. None of this was government volunteerism. This was a private entity of, yes, ex-government intel people, but they were private. They had their own agenda. They wanted to get this message out, and they got it out into the New York Times. That was the coup. And that is what has changed this conversation. And by the way, with the New York Times, every bit of information that I have got on this, and I'm not going to give up names. I don't want to get people mad at me here. But the New York Times had a lot of pushback on these articles at first, and they allowed them to go through. And that's a story that I would love to get the full detail on. But it's not like the New York Times immediately said, oh, yeah, we're going to do it. I've always believed the Times covered those stories in 2017 because they were coming out anyway. There was actually a fair amount of coverage on what TTSA was doing through October and November of 2017. And, you have Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal and Helene Cooper working this. I think the Times said, okay, we'll take this and we'll get out ahead of it. And then what happened is that the story became bigger than that. And so then that forced the rest of the establishment into making some level of accommodation. But this is as far as they're going. This where they are right now. Like, we're supposed to get in 6 months' time the Navy task force, the UAP task force. They're in the COVID emergency relief bill, that provision is buried there. And the question is, what are they going to say? And this is my prediction. It's not going to say a hell of a lot. When you consider the massive amount of good quality UFO sightings over the last 20 years alone, video, photo, great testimony. I've been going through this. I'm actively working on Volume 3 of UFOs in a national security state. So I am in this deep right now.
And now I read the
all
words.
of this information at me is an unbelievable amount. So you're going to tell me that the military, with their sensors, their satellites, their equipment, that they don't have some of this? How much of that do you think is going to get out? I'll tell you how much. A couple of dribbles.
Well, I've read the verbiage, and in the provision, the 180-day report, that it should be public information available to the public, but it is provided that the report can have a section of classified.
Exactly.
Right? And I thought, well, there's your out.
That's
right?
Absolutely. Look, if they're going to determine that these various sightings have national security implications, they're not going to declassify them. That's that. It's that simple. They're not going to do that. So we'll get a couple of bones thrown at us, I'm sure, when some of it will be made public. And there, we had the Tic Tac UFO. That was, of course, that wasn't the Navy volunteering that was through TTSA's efforts. But nonetheless, we may get a couple of new cases.
Well, this is how I see it. The public portion of the report, this is my crystal ball. Public portion of the crystal ball is its drones and identifiable, right? The UAPs are all explainable.
It's what happened with Project Blue Book.
Right.
That's exactly what Blue Book did. They had unidentifieds. People make so much of a big deal. 701 unidentifieds. Yeah, when you go into the Blue Book unidentifieds, they're the most boring, ridiculous, forgettable UFO cases. I saw a light up in the horizon go up and move over, and then it's blinked out. That's by the mid 60s. That's what Blue Book's unidentifieds were, and the really good cases were not going there. They were going elsewhere. And I think that's where we're going to see something like that with this.
Yeah, the classified section is going to be anything that could be ET related. We're not going to see that. I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah.
With the Senate Intelligence Committee's conversation about the UAP task force, the UAPTF, are the senators actually using words like extraterrestrial, flying saucer, UFOs, or are those senators on that committee assuming that we are talking about threats from the Soviet Union and China?
Come on, what do you think?
What?
What do you think? I'll tell you what I think. No, not China, not Russia.
No, I'm talking
They're
about
not
the
that
conversation. Yeah, but the conversations with the senators, are they really talking about little green men?
I don't know. Like you know, there have been various statements put out by people like Christopher Mellon and Eric Davis, who both of whom were at the briefings. Davis gave briefings to these people.
Well, Davis did use the word flying saucer, right? He said it. It's in that latest article.
Yeah, Davis is extremely forthright. Like whatever you think, like he's almost blunt at times, and so I'm pretty sure that he laid it out for these people. I mean, his opinions are very well known. And I don't think there's any reason to doubt that he didn't give these opinions just as straightforward to the senators. So, no, I'm quite sure they're having conversations about extraterrestrial component of UFOs. No doubt in my mind.
Why isn't there, Richard? You're a researcher, you're a writer, you're a publisher. Why, with that article, with that paragraph, that quote from Eric Davis, right, that we have captured flying saucers, right? That's the quote. Why hasn't a journalist?
You mean the author of the Thomas Wilson notes that I've been arguing for the last couple of years? That Eric Davis? Yes.
That same Dr. Eric Davis.
Right. Yes,
Why
indeed.
hasn't a journalist out there seized on that quote and gone to Eric Davis to explain it, or gone to Marco Rubio and the other members of the Senate Intelligence Committee for clarification on that quote?
When you say journalist, I mean, who do you mean? You mean someone who's like with NBC News? Well, that's not going to happen.
Anybody.
So,
how about you?
All right. Well, has no one followed up with Davis?
Yeah, isn't that a nugget? Isn't that a gift to a journalist out there to seize on that statement and that quote from Eric?
Yes, I think so. And hey, thank you for calling me out on it. I should ask him.
I mean,
I don't know what he'll say to me though. Like, that's the thing. But I shouldn't prejudge the matter. So, thank you for lighting a little fire underneath my backside there.
Well, it's only because when you read that latest article from Ralph and Leslie, it's a lot of rehash.
Are you talking about the one from last summer?
Yes,
right.
yes. It's a lot of rehash. But you get to that quote from Eric Davis, and it's like, holy crap. He's saying he debriefed the United States Senate and told them we have crash flying saucers.
And by the way,
that's the most explosive thing ever.
In the aftermath of that article, Leslie and Ralph did a really interesting interview with a fellow named Jay over at Project Unity. And I know and like Jay very much. He's got a good channel. I just want to give him a shout out. He interviewed them. And it was a very perceptively done interview. And when you listen to that, I mean, they actually, Leslie and I almost accidentally gave a confirmation of the Davis notes for Wilson. That's one thing. But what they also did is they were coming within a hair's breadth of acknowledging the reality of UFO crash retrievals. It's a really interesting interview.
I reached out to Ralph. Ralph, I'm not throwing you under the bus, but I reached out to Ralph after the article came out to come on to Fade to Black. And his response was, I've got a book coming out in 2021. I'll let you know, and we'll talk then. That was 6 months ago. And yeah, because how do I?
They're very careful. He's a decent man. I've corresponded with him, and Leslie. I have a very high regard for Leslie Kane.
Yes.
But they have to be very careful with their statements because they're still trying to work through the New York Times. That's their thing. Like a lot of times you want them just to say, throw off the gloves and just because they both know a great deal more than what they have written.
Of course.
And they've said this. So I'm not outing them here. They've said this themselves in their interview with Jay. For starters. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to throw off the gloves because they believe, and maybe they're right, I don't know, but they believe that working through the establishment newspaper, the New York Times, and getting that word out can do more. So even though they're essentially, they admitted but didn't admit, but did admit that they were being censored or that they were being very strictly guided in what they were allowed to say. I mean, it's not hard to read between the lines of what they were talking about.
In closing tonight, Richard, one thing that we're all used to in the UFO community is what we're going through now, which is, okay, one more year, right? Okay, one more year. Maybe this will be the year. We've been waiting, right? And
keep waiting.
Yeah. 2021, is it the year?
No. Doubt it. I seriously doubt it. It's not going to be the year.
Oh, man.
I don't see any voluntary disclosure happening. I'll make this proviso. If it happens, don't believe it. In other words, there is a mountain of UFO data. All right, mountains and mountains. If there were a disclosure moment by a United States government, you're going to be getting a tiny sliver of that mountain. And it will be that sliver that will be designed for the purposes of those people giving that message, for to suit their needs. To keep responsible people out of prison for whatever criminal acts, and B, probably to generate just enough fear. They don't want to give too much fear because that works against their purposes as well. But just enough fear so that people will say, well, we want you to protect us. That kind of thing I could see. But that's a desperate measure. Like, there won't be a disclosure unless the back is to the wall and there is literally no other way out. And they're not even close to that point right now.
We could have
We're still at the we don't know what they are phase, like this nonsense.
We could have gotten a tweet out of Trump, but that ain't going to happen.
Yeah. I was half expecting it for a while.
So was I.
Years of his, and the man lived on Twitter, and you could just see him like at 2 a.m. saying, "People, we all know that UFOs are real." Like, of course, that would have had very little effect on public opinion. Half the people would have said that's BS anyway. But it would have been interesting, but it didn't happen.
Okay. Richard, thank you so much, man. And my best to you and Tracy and the rest of the family, and our thoughts and prayers with you and everything else, what is going on and what you have just gone through with the family. So enough of that. When is what are you working on now? New book? You're writing?
I was very happy with my last book, The Alien Agendas. That was a kind of a surprise project, but I really like it. I've gotten great reviews. I'm very pleased about that. That book is my speculative analysis on what I think is going on. Like, who are these other beings and what's their agenda? And I really tried my best to lay that out for the first time ever. Right now, I am deep into getting all of my data together for Volume 3 of UFOs and their national security state, and it's become kind of an important priority. And I've surprised myself with how much and how consistently I'm working at it. And on top of that, I work at my website, richarddolanmembers.com, where I've got a lot of people. I try to keep everyone happy there and produce content exclusively for that site, which is where a lot of my energy also goes.
Thank you so much, man. And I always look forward to the conversations, but
they're always good.
Well, what was great tonight, I think for both of it, we've never gone into these zones before. And
no, I was a bit nervous beforehand. I'm not going to lie. Like, I just thought, am I going to step into, a foot of dog manure or whatever? I'm going to go like destroy myself with some statement that's going to piss off half the people who follow me.
It was funny before the show when you said to me, Jimmy, are you sure? Right?
Yeah, like I didn't really know. But on the other hand, look, it's important. Like it is important to discuss these things. They're going on all around us, and it's not a good idea for me just to run away from it all the time. So I'm glad that we had this chance to do it. I'll probably do a live stream on YouTube tomorrow, and I'll talk probably about some of these issues.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. Be safe and be well, and we'll speak soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Richard Bleepin Dolan. And we just went literally poll to poll here. So I've got to get out of here and run credits, but richarddolanpress.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. All simple to do. Follow Richard on Twitter at Rich Dolan. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennison, Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. was broadcast under copyright of 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Now, I'm going to talk to Richard for another half hour as I sign off. Until tomorrow night with Greg Hausch, everybody be safe. Fade to Black.